Awesome. All right, here we go. Round 2. Got my hair combed, got a nicer sweater. Let's see if this one works this time. This is the wrong copy of the book. Thought it seemed a little off. All right. So we left off in the descent into the Kineser's lair. So here we go. Half an hour later, 2 splorchers and a dire spore later. I read that wrong, not the book. Half an hour, 2 splorchers and a dire spore later, the 3 men discovered something they couldn't walk around, poke with a spear, or even attach to their face. The being in front of them looked like a girl's clay sculpture. Its eyes were lumpish. Its mouth drooped, and its lips had run down its face. It had no legs. Instead, its torso clung to the steps like a half-melted candle. Beyond that, it was shapeless. What is that? Is that one of Rebecca's? She'd never made something so awful. That don't fill me with awe. Makes me want to get a very large mop and a bucket. Not much good without a bucket. Good point. Some water, too. Goes without saying. Quiet, lads. It's moving. The creature's jaw slid down its face. Bubbles formed at the back of its throat and burst wetly in a simulacrum of speech. Blop, blip, blop, blop, blip. What do you want, fiend? Demanded Trent. What have you done to Rebecca? It shook its head and tried again. Get me. Blop, plop, can't. Bop, bop, legs. Trent squinted at the oozing lips. That you, Treacle? Thought you might be dead. Pull. Bop, arm. Trent grasped Treacle's slime-covered arm and pulled. Treacle didn't move. Trent looked back at the others. Well, what are you waiting for? Bidden slapped Turnpike on the back. Get in there, lad. Put those young man's muscles to work. Turnpike stumbled forward to help. The clay was reluctant to give up its prize, but had little choice once he joined Trent's efforts. Treacle's waist appeared, then his hips. As his knees emerged from the steps, there was a slurp like a tooth leaving its socket, and then he was free. Good work, lads. That's why me and Grady convinced Jorgman to keep you around. Biden stumped over to Treacle, who was wiping out his eyes. Don't go running off like that again. What if you'd broke your neck? We don't have the funds for proper armor, let alone a widow's pension. You should be setting an example for these young lads. Treacle began to defend himself. But Bidden cut him off. We'll do reprimands and excuses later. There's more pressing matters at hand. Do you see Lord Glove or Rebecca? Yeah, said Treacle. He passed me and went around that corner about 10 minutes ago. Didn't even notice me calling for help. Never seen him like this. That's because you've never seen him scared, said Bidden. There's a lot more than a grumpy old woman at stake here. He pointed down the stairs. Do you remember the path he took, where he stepped? Treacle grunted in affirmation. Good. We'll be following you. Lead the way. It was only a few minutes to the bottom of the stairs. There, around the corner, they found Lord Glove. He had slumped against the mossy door at the end of the tunnel. He only acknowledged their approach with a weak lift of his head. I can't get in, he said. I pushed on the door, but it didn't even budge when I kicked it. I tried pulling, but there's no handle, and I couldn't wedge my dagger in the crack. He gestured to the mess of scratches surrounding the latch. I've tried everything. Turnpike pointed to the door's lead knocker. Have you tried knocking? Knocking? Lord Glove blinked. Yes. Yes, of course. His eyes brightened. Yes! He leapt to his feet and began striking the knocker. Why didn't I think of that? Turnpike rolled his eyes. The older guards were still. Turnpike was new, but Bidden and the others had served Lord Glove for a long time. Sometimes the old lord needed a prod, that was all. Once he got going, he was as quick as a quarrel. On the third knock, a high-pitched voice filled the air. Who seeks the Kineser? Bidden winced. Each shrill syllable felt like a rusty fishhook tugging at his vertebrae. Lord Glove shivered for a moment, but managed to maintain his composure. I am Lord Glove, Conor to the king, and Rebecca's master. I received a summon claiming she was in danger. I demand you allow us entry. Lord Glove, master of this dom, raiser of Sestheim, lord of the burned city, betrayer of Rebecca's love, enter. The door swung inward with a sound like a man drowning in a quagmire. The revealed room was a scene from one of Bidden's fever dreams. The walls of the room were coated in a mossy membrane. Bronze brackets punctured the organic skin haphazardly, causing thick mud to weep from the wounds. Set in the tarnished sconces were smoking torches, which occasionally gave off a choking puff of light. Workbenches lined the walls below, beside and in several cases, above the torches. The benches towered high with every sort of tool and material imaginable. Some of the materials were flammable. Many were acidic. Most were both. One table held a mound of skinless bodies. A tall stack of leather-bound books sank into it, mocking them all the way down. 2 paces along the wall, and 6 down, a jar of gray-green liquid bubbled grimly in time with the staccato whispers of a sourceless clock. The rest of the wall, indeed the rest of the room, was much the same. One could as easily find a maze of tables set with strangely shaped vegetables as a pack of quivering globules or a mound of glowing jade. Black rain fell from the ceiling. Gray mist rose from the floor. Candles atop tall stacks of scrolls illuminated both with pale blue light where they met. Boxes dominated the room. They oozed ink, leaked bile, cried blood, and seeped other liquids which could only be described as unpleasant. Quotation marks and all. Before Bidden could even begin to comprehend the wide variety of potential respiratory assailants and the lesser, though no less concerning, circulatory impairments, the wall to his right spoke. Crude lips carved into its surface parted with a sigh, and a moaning gale issued forth. Bubbles rose rapidly in the rivulets of mud streaming across the wet abrasion, and then popped sadly, in harmony with the wall's depthless despair. Depthless despair. One moment. I'm back. Actually, I'm not. And I'm back again. Lordship, you are here. Lord Glove strode to the wall, hand on his dagger. Who are you? Where's the Kineser? What have you done with her? I am Emmet. The Kineser has died. The wall's wailing dropped to the whisper of a powerless girl. Time. Illness. Lack of sun. I know not the cause. Where is her body? She realized she was fading. She gave me as much of her knowledge as she knew how, as much as she could. In the time she had, you will find an heir. Lord Glove set his jaw. Where is her body? Where is her body? Better. Hollow eyes opened on the wall. Bidden put a hand to his heart. There was something terrible in them. Anger? Hatred? He could not tell. Her body rests in her private chamber. Clods of earth fell as Emmet's face turned. You need only speak her name to the north wall. It will deliver her to you. Some walls towered, others leered. The wall behind Bidden sent clods of dirt tumbling down the back of his collar as it crumbled. Emmet was alive, and beside the golem, the wall oozed outward in an ever-spreading pool. The north wall was different yet again. It was a waterfall. Mud slid over moss and around broken stones before crashing down into the earth and vanishing without a trace. Lord Glove ducked a low-hanging alligator and navigated his way past several towering stacks of broken pottery. He placed his hand on the wall. Rebecca. The mud slid over Lord Glove's hand and ran between his fingers. Nothing else happened. Rebecca! Rebecca! Lord Glove struck the wall, causing mud to splash across his coat. Rebecca! Emmet's lips split, letting free a whispering vesper. You must speak truth, not lies. Lord Glove placed his hand once again against the wall. Then he closed his eyes and was silent. Bidden sensed his mood and stopped shuffling to stay dry. The other guards followed suit. The room went still. The only sound was the pattering of mud as it landed on the guards' helmets. Twin stars ran down Lord Glove's face, torchlight reflecting off his glistening cheeks. His lips trembled. "I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Evers." A hand met Lord Glove's own through the wall. An arm emerged. Lord Glove caught the body a moment later. She was small and caked in mud. He straightened, holding her delicately in his arms. She had been a hard woman. Bidden had mostly been afraid of her. Now, she simply looked old and frail. Bidden looked at Treacle, tossing his head in their lord's direction. The towering guardsman got the hint once Bidden kicked him in the shin. He stepped forward. "My lord, would you have me carry her?" A tear fell onto Rebecca's face, clearing a streak of mud from her cheek. It almost looked as if she had been the one crying. "No, I will see her to the surface. I ask instead you go to Rezel and tell him to make ready for the funeral. I must stay a while to speak with Emmett. Leave now, my friends. Please." "Of course, Peace Seeker. Of course." That's the chapter name. "Of course, Peace Seeker. Of course. You and your daughter hurry in now." The woman swept her arm from the man and his girls to the doorway of her house. "I don't want to impose." The corners of the man's weak blue eyes crinkled. His long fingers fumbled along the inner seams of his patchwork coat, searching a dozen hidden pockets. He withdrew his hand, revealing empty fingers. His face turned red. "I'm sorry, perhaps I can repay you sometime in the future." "I wouldn't dream of it, Peace Seeker. Your daughter will waste away if she spends another night outside in the cold. Look at her." The woman knew she was exaggerating, but not by much. The little girl's ragged clothes hung loose about her thin frame. Her cheeks, brown and weathered by the sun, were drawn tight about her face. Though her gaze was steady, her dark eyes did not focus on the two adults. She stared beyond them, at some distant point the woman couldn't see. "We've been on the road for a few weeks, but I've done right by her. I know a bit about living in the country." The man ran his hand through his thin blonde hair, and his lips jerked into a small smile, so quick she didn't quite see it, but slow enough to know it had been there. "Oh, we make do." "There is more to living than making do. Come in, Peace Seeker. We'll get some stew into you and your little maiden child." "I can work for your lodging. At least give that to me. A man's got his pride. My legs are strong, and my hands know the shape and feel of every axe, pick, and shovel from here to the South Sea." The woman smiled and shook her head. "Very well. You can do my wood chopping. I won't say no to a chance to rest my arms." "Now do hurry in, Peace Seeker. The light's fading, and I'm not liking the shape of those clouds." The man took the girl's hand in his own. "Come on, I." "I?" said the woman. "Yes, my daughter's name." A frown flitted across the woman's face, but did not land. "That's an old-fashioned sort of name, isn't it?" "Indeed it is. My wife said the old names were the best, for none are truer. And I thought, if the names are to be true, what's a truer name than I?" The woman thought the name to be a bit cruel, but at that moment the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Sundown brought with it a last breath of winter. The Peace Seeker's many-colored coat flapped about him, and his daughter's tunic billowed wildly. Whatever words the woman was about to say were forgotten. She gestured again to the door, and smiled when the pair shuffled through. Moments later, the last of the sun's light faded from the sky. The woman secured the latch as a new gust rose, blocking out the sound of the promising storm, and the sharp smell of winter. New sounds and smells took their place. The crack of coals in the hearth, the rattling of a pot lid, split peas and venison. Under the warm light of a lantern, she searched her cupboard, procuring an iron ladle and 3 wooden bowls. I always make enough for travelers in case one happens by. Of course, more than you'd think, Peace Seeker. She began doling out thick gray stew into her bowls. Another quick smile jerked the man's lips sideways, but this one was smaller and more painful. A brief flash of regret on his withered face. Please, call me Lanet. That is who I am. Nothing more. It's about time you introduced yourself, she winked. I'm Asar. Pleasure to have you and I in my home. Asar smiled as she said I's name. Funny name, isn't it? I'd change it if I could, but it's all I has of her mother. She died soon after I was born. Died in childbirth? Poor dear. No, not childbirth. I'd rather not talk about it. Some things are too painful. The man's weak blue eyes became a shade lighter until he blinked away the recollection. Asar had a thought as she was handing out the bowls. Your daughter has such pretty long hair. I know a dress that'll fit it perfectly. She saw Lanet was about to protest and silenced him. No. My husband's a tailor. We have plenty spare clothing. Anyway, hardly anyone will buy this dress. My husband painted the whole thing with those carvings from the old times. He said it would make it last longer. Looks to me like it just stained the dress. Still, sort of mesmerizing, and it'd be a shame to see good velvet go to waste. I'll nip down to the bedroom and get it. Asar ran to her closet, so Lanet wouldn't have time to think of any further protests. It was a simple matter to convince I to remove her tattered tunic. Asar had always been good with girls, maiden children in particular. With a practiced tug, she pulled the dress over the girl's head. Asar leaned back with her hands on I's shoulders to look at her. The dress had been red at one point. Not vibrant like a cardinal, or pure like ochre, but dark and mercurial. That's what I get I can't pronounce. But dark and mercurial like blood. Scrawled across it were enough ultramarine runes to color the ocean. The long loops and swirls left the dress nearly as blue as it was red. Fit for a queen, husband said. Asar pinched the dress. It was good quality, even if it looked strange. I ran her hands over the smooth fabric and then looked at Asar for the first time, dark eyes sparkling. It's a little long, isn't it? Lanet said worriedly, looking at how the dress bunched on the ground around I's feet. Asar patted Lanet on the shoulder. I'll hem it for you. You don't have to worry about her growing out of it. Velvet doesn't last long anyways. Her husband would scold her for that. Velvet wasn't made to be worn in everyday activities, but she had to get the dress out of the house somehow. Lanet relaxed and grinned down at his daughter, this time without the customary jerking motion. Do you like it, I? It warmed Asar's heart to see I smile. She doesn't talk much, does she? Asked Asar, as she marked the length with pins. She's shy is all. Lanet ruffled her hair. Doesn't know many people. Doesn't have any friends. His eyes darkened. Life of travel will do that to you. I wish I could give I the raising she deserves. It took Asar a moment to figure out who Lanet was talking about. Do you ever grow used to that? Lanet picked up I, who had just let out a yawn. It takes time. Truth be told, with just me and I on the road, we don't have much cause to say her name. Known her 9 years now, and still not completely used to it. Again, sadness took his features. I don't think I ever will be. Now, Lanet, I've known a lot of young men like you. You won't be peace-seeking forever. Peace comes in time, often without you noticing. I bet it's just around the corner. Lanet's curt nod was all Asar needed to see his journey was far from done. And I'm going to wrap it up there because my voice is starting to go. So thank you for watching, and yeah, hopefully I'll be able to do this more, and we'll get through this entire book. And if you liked it, again, you can find links to buy it on Amazon in the description of this video. All right, bye. Bye.